The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, and I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I will be bringing forward today's 8-game NBA slate that will take place this evening. For those of you that normally listen to us on your way to work, I apologize, this is getting out a little late today, but it is still pretty early morning, and it will definitely be out there so you guys can listen to it on your breaks or at lunch or on your ride home from work. Got a little tied up last night with some stuff, and just wanted to get this out to you fresh this morning when I could take a good solid look at it. So it is an awesome slate. 8 games for a Tuesday, which is unusual to have that big of a slate. And it's a really competitive one. So I'm looking forward to going through this game by game and getting you guys ready to smash it in DFS this evening. First of all, before we get rolling here, I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Fantasy Draft. They are the only rate-free fantasy site in the industry. Tremendous contests every day, including their $25, $30,000 pick and roll guaranteed, and their $5, $7,500 layup, which is also guaranteed. And remember, they are the only rate-free site in the industry. They keep a tally for you to show you how much you saved in rate, and it adds up like you would not believe. So, you end up, honestly, when all the numbers are done, and I've done it now for like 3 months or 4 months, however long they started it, and for me it ends up being about 5 or 6% that I'm paying in rake when you instead of rake paying membership, as opposed to on the other sites where I'd be paying anywhere from 12 to 16%. So when you're talking about 2.5 times the amount that you're dumping in a rake, you got to look at Fantasy Draft. They are the best. I mean, there's nothing better than going in there. I like to play head-to-heads. You play $100 head-to-head, you take it down, you get $200. The other sites, you play $100 head-to-head, you take down $190. And if you play quite a few of those, that makes a big impact on your winnings and lessens your percentage of success in building that bankroll. So go to fantasydraft.com, put in the promo code HoopBall, and that'll get you your initial 7-day free membership up to $1,000 in rake, and that'll get the party started for you. And then jump in our Coaches Challenge. It is tomorrow on Wednesday, not tonight's card, but it'll be tomorrow, Wednesday's card. I will do a show later this evening with my man Mike Apotria to go over Wednesday's slate, which will be the Coaches Challenge slate. So definitely want to get in that. It'll post this afternoon, the Coaches Challenge, and I will tweet that out, and Hoopball will also tweet that out, because you're going to want to get in there before too late on Wednesday. We were 2 spots from selling out for the first time last week, and last week we did 2 contests, but we're just going to do the one this week, and so it's definitely going to sell out. So jump in there, not only win some good money, but you win some really cool Fantasy Draft swag, and we will send that out to the champs. We've had 3 champs so far, and none of us pros here at Hoop Ball, Mr. Apotria, Hansen, or myself, has taken it down yet. But I think this is the week I'm gonna go for it. So I'm pretty fired up to get this going and go after tomorrow's slate. Just to give you a quick preview with tomorrow, it is a real nice, perfect size 7-game slate. So that will be fantastic. And again, you can tune in late tonight or early tomorrow morning for a Patri and I breaking down that Coach's Challenge Wednesday slate. But right now, we got to get after this one. I love this slate, man. It's a perfect 8 games. Got to do your homework. Can't just plug in any of the chalk. You got to really look for some value. Outstanding contests. So let's dive in. Oklahoma City Thunder, Indiana Pacers are the first game, 7 p.m. Eastern. And, we're looking at an interesting game here. We've got, both teams playing mid-range pace. Let's double check. Oklahoma City playing at the 12th fastest pace as we speak. And Indiana is at the 13th. So they're just definitely a little bit above average in pace. A big thing in this game is the player news. We already know that Turner is out, and we already know that Lamb is out. So that makes this game an very, very interesting game for me, and it makes it a very playable game for me. I am going to dial up Sabonis. I think you pretty much have to with Turner out, and even Goga Bitadze is out. He's in concussion protocol. So there's no true backup center, and Sabonis is feeling good. He played 38 minutes last game. He should be ready to go full tilt in this one. And Steven Adams is questionable, and that means Nerlens Noel will get some center, and he's been decent, but Sabonis should be able to just absolutely smash. So he's 100% lock and load play for me. And then I'm going to decide on one of two guys here, depending on how the build goes and what the money's looking like. But there's the two possibilities I like here on the Indiana side are either Malcolm Brogdon or we have to go to the small forward TJ Warren. The reason being is the usage with Turner and Lamb both out just shoots way up for all three guys, actually, when you're talking about Brogdon, Sabonis, and Warren. Lamb's absence specifically spikes Warren's usage because they take similar mid-range, similar type buckets. So as of right now, just on a cost perspective, I'm leaning towards Warren and going Sabonis Warren. But if I can free up enough money once I have my build going, Brogdon is certainly going to be in play. On the Oklahoma City side, they've been somewhat inconsistent. They're certainly phasing in more of their young guys like Diallo and Baisley. Paul very seldom makes value. Shea certainly does a lot, but his price has drifted up a little bit. The one guy that has stayed cheap, and it's going to be all news dependent, if Adams is completely ruled out, then the two times that's happened, Nerlens Noel has gone 7 and 8x. He's a good rebound shot blocker guy, and he soaks up most of those minutes at the center if Adams is out. So that's completely something you have to stay on top of the news on to make that determination, because if Adams out, I play Noel. If Adams is in, I don't play Noel. Very simple. All right, and really that's it for that game. I do like that game, and I'll have some guys fired up right off the bat there. All right, game 2, Cleveland Cavaliers at the Philadelphia 76ers. And I am the last 2 or 3 games I've been looking at possible potential of expecting a blowout. It has not happened. It's hard to predict a blowout. It really is. And in the one game, it was a 12.5 point spread, and the underdog won. So you just NBA, they're professionals. You can certainly forecast for a blowout and try to let that, affect your build a little bit. But I've learned multiple times, and sometimes I get reminded of it, that it's really hard to predict those, and you got to be real careful in sometimes over being a little overbearing with trying to figure that, because this is one I would think Philadelphia is going to be in pretty good control of, but again, we'll see how that goes. If you're between two guys and one's in this game and one's in a game with a real low spread of 1 or 2, 3 points, you may want to lean that way, because if this game does blow out and somebody loses 12, 15 minutes of playing time, that can sink your slate for sure. All right, as far as the pace goes in this game, by the way, the spread is opening Philly by 11, so it is a double-digit spread, and it is the only double-digit spread on the slate thus far. So that is a slight highlight of blowout warning. Defensive efficiency-wise, I want to make a mention here. Philly's 7th in the league, and Cleveland is 17th. So these teams have been D'ing it up a little bit. That's also a concern, somewhat on the total. And then you've got Cleveland coming in at 24th in pace, and Philadelphia is actually up to 11. So it's a little bit of pace up for Cleveland and certainly a pace down for Philly. I'm not going to go the direction of Embiid here just from a cost perspective. I just don't want to spend the majority of my money rolling him out in this game. Simmons is still out, and Al Horford is out. So how does that affect this game? Where does that usage go to? And how is that going to affect everybody? What I think is, rather than going to guys off the bench as value plays, I sort of like the two guys that I think that, Embiid's going to get his, and that's that. The two guys I think that can jump up without Horford and without Simmons in there are Jay Rich and Tobias Harris. Those are the two guys in play for me. I don't want to dumpster dive into the bench guys like Scott and Cork Maz and those guys. I think on an 8-game slate, you can be picky enough to try to fit in Josh Richardson or Tobias Harris. I think those will be the two that have the biggest lift in usage. So I'm definitely going to look at those two guys, with the rotation of people out. Also, with those two guys out, yes, it does probably lessen the blowout potential somewhat, but that's sort of where I'm going to go there. On the Cleveland side, they've been tough to figure. Those young guards have been on and off, very inconsistent, very tough to build anything around. Kevin Love and certainly Tristan Thompson, those two guys, the two big guys have been, they've been solid. They've had some really good fantasy output games where they've, hit value pretty easily. But in this Philly matchup, I know Horford's out. He's a tremendous defender, but Embiid's still, guarding the rim, and Scott comes in and plays good D. Jay Rich is a terrific defender. Harris is an above average defender. So I'm not going Cleveland here at all. I'm going to stick with the guys from Philly that I think are going to bump up both in usage. All right, game 3. Detroit Pistons at Miami Heat. An interesting game. Detroit's coming off a back-to-back. Blake Griffin came back yesterday, played 23 minutes, was extremely efficient in that 23 minutes. 17 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, he just looked terrific. I would assume he'll still be on that 20 to 25 minute, definitely max minutes, especially on a back-to-back just after coming back. Definitely keep listening to the news, though. I mean, there is always the possibility they don't want to play him on a back-to-back. But, the fact that he played limited minutes last night, I think he rolls out there again for limited minutes tonight. But it's not enough minutes for him, for me to roster him. I am not going to play him until I hear he's on that 25 to 30 minute side of things. And he's a triple double guy, waiting to happen here once he gets his full minutes back. He is tough. He sees the floor so well for a power forward. Just plays sort of that forward center type position tremendously. So not going to use him tonight. Definitely going to start using him as soon as that limits restriction lifts. If Griffin is playing like I anticipate, to me that takes Drummond right down to the bench. I love Drummond. I rode him off into the sunset in several builds this season so far with Griffin out, but it's just such a usage smash bump down for him with Griffin back, just because Griffin, he is ball dominant. He's got the ball in his hands. He's finishing. He's scooping some of those rebounds from Drummond. And yeah, Drummond's going to do fine, but his price is through the roof right now, and I just don't think you can pay that. As far as the backcourt, Rose was questionable and ended up playing yesterday. Does that mean he'll play limited minutes tonight or sit? That hasn't been announced yet. Something to keep an eye on. Sort of shocked that Brett Brown only played like 13 minutes last night. He really got shafted on, he played so well for a week or so when all those point guards were out. But Tim Frazier, the backup point guard, was also back, and he got 10 minutes. So right now I'm avoiding the entire situation there as far as the point position with Detroit until that all shakes out. Reggie Jackson will be out for like a month, but you still have now three guys, with Rose, Frazier, and Brown splitting the point guard minutes. So that's a pass. Kennard has been on fire. He had a great game again last night, shooting the ball well, a go-to guy. I just am concerned against a really good Miami Heat defense. They have such a good scheme defensively. They really get after it. Right now, they're the fourth best defensive proficient team, and that really scares me away from wanting to play anybody in the Detroit backcourt. As far as Detroit's defensive prowess goes, they're not very good at all. They're 26th, and they're not. They're defending so in the paint, but they're just getting smoked on the outside, just giving up all kinds of perimeter stuff, which, I just think it's maybe a rotation of all the new guys playing in there that aren't used to defending and not getting it done. So, that brings some Miami guys into play for me. So I'm a full pass on the Detroit side of the ball. On the Miami side, I do like some guys. First of all, Miami's the 10th rated speed team and Detroit's 23, so should be an average pace game. The line is sort of in the middle of everybody. But who I like here a little bit, Tyler Hero's questionable, Winslow's questionable. They have some guys dinged. I'm sticking with Kendrick Nunn. I think that he's had a little bit of a dip in performance recently. He's also had a little bit of dip in his costs. So I think you can get some value on him. He's certainly worth a play. And I love Jimmy Butler in this game. It's another home game for Miami. He's playing such solid ball, and you can expect him to fill up the stat sheet. I mean, he may only score 15 points, but he's going to get you 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 3-4 steals, a couple of blocks. So Butler's in play for me for sure. I also like Kendrick Nunn. I'm going to steer away from Bam because I just think with he and Drummond smashing on each other in there, I just want to avoid any foul trouble or any of those issues. And Bam's not going to be able to muscle Drummond like he does most guys because Drummond will bounce him back. So I like the two guards from Miami, and that's about it as far as where I'm going to go in that game. The fourth game on the slate, New York Knicks at Chicago Bulls. Yikes. New York Knicks 2-8, Chicago 3-7. low total, two bad teams. Their pace is bad. I mean, New York's 28th, Chicago's 17th. I mean, this is such a bad game. The news came out Sunday and yesterday. Fizdale's job is on the line. The general manager is talking about possible changes, so that's probably the kiss of death for him. How does that affect the Knicks' performance? I don't know. It's I can't imagine that the confusion and unsure aspect of things there is going to help matters. That's for sure. But this is just an awful game. This could be a game in the 90s, and it's hard to trust anybody. Plus, you have some guys out, some questionable guys. It's no sense in spending time here because I am not going to roster any Knicks and I'm not going to roster any Bulls. I just don't trust this game whatsoever, and let's just pass and move on. All right, we're halfway through the slate. Couple things real quickly. Again, I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Fantasy Draft. Get to fantasydraft.com, sign up with the promo code HoopBall. Get in that coach's challenge on Wednesday. It's going to be awesome this week. I'm going to take this sucker down. I'm definitely going to beat Apotri and Andrew. I've had enough of this now. Also want to thank Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. They are HoopBall's founding sponsor, and they are part of sponsorship with all of our shows. And definitely want to thank HoopBall, hoop-ball.com. That's our home base. Dan Vesperis and Brew and the team. They're the ones that have put all of this together and put these broadcasts and podcasts out there every day. They're, diligence behind the scenes, especially Dan, man. He works hard, taking all of these shows that we're sending them podcast-wise and making sure they all sound good and are, all edited and out there to you in a timely manner. So I really appreciate him. And as far as, when we're looking up the news for the day, like today's already Tuesday morning and Tuesday night, we're about, when I'm recording this, about 9 hours from lock right now. So you've got all day to follow this news, and that's key. I've already mentioned it being a factor in many of these games already. The Oklahoma-Indiana game, Detroit-Miami game, Knicks-Bulls game, all of these are going to have news that breaks today that's going to affect the slate. So the best way to keep up with that news is to follow us on Twitter. You can follow @HoopBallFantasy. That's where all of our blurbs and Miles and Andy are posting all that information throughout the day, player news, changes, scratches, everything you can find on there. Also, the three of us that are the DFS pros here at HoopBall, myself, I'm @Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Mike Apotria is @Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. And Andrew Hansen is @Language Olympic. You can also just go right directly to hoop-ball.com, click on the forums, click on DFS thread, and those are updated throughout the day. Again, Andy and Miles do a great job posting everything as it happens there, and you can get that information, and that will help you finalize building your roster. I tell everybody all the time, it's a two-step process. One, listen to the podcast, listen to the breakout, start, mentally building your lineup, start putting in an initial build, and then, click on to our Twitters and in hoop-ball.com for all the news, and that's how you can finalize up to lock. And that's really the way to do it. And I will post things on there throughout the day, all the way up until lock. And lock tonight is 7 Eastern, just a normal lock on an 8-game slate. So that's what you want to do there for sure. And definitely listen to us every day. Normally the show's out late night or first thing in the morning. I did get some tweets this morning of some folks riding to work saying, "Hey, where's Hoopball NBA DFS show?" And I answered on Twitter and said it'll be coming out this morning, but normally it's already out there, and you can find us anywhere podcasts can be heard. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube. You name it, we're out there. Click on us. Please take 15 to 30 seconds if you would. Rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars, likes, positive reviews, thumbs up. All of those things make such a huge difference to us in bringing this content to you free. We want to keep our sponsors happy, and we, in my opinion, and I feel strongly about this, I think we have the best NBA DFS news and content in the industry that's in front of the paywall. There are some services out there that are solid, but you're paying a premium for those, and we're able to through our good reviews and all the activity on Twitter and our Hoopball Challenge and all the things that we have going on that allows us to bring this to you free is something we'd ask you to continue to support. So, all right, awesome. Let's get into the Final Four. We've got a 9 p.m. Eastern game, the Atlanta Hawks at the Denver Nuggets. Now, a complete opposite look here of a game that you've got super speed and super slow. So when we look at the pace of play right now, you've got Denver is second to last in the league, and Atlanta's actually fallen all the way to 18th. They were in the top 10 most of the year. I think with Collins going down and some of the changes there, they have slowed down the game a little bit. The ball's sticking in Trae Young's hands quite a bit as well. Do you spend up for Trae Young, big bucks? He does produce like 50 fantasy points a night, but his price has continued to rise. I just have a concern, in a game that's played, on the road in Denver, the altitude, super slow-paced team. Denver ranks third in defensive efficiency in the entire league. I just can't go there. I do not like spending up for Trae. Now the trendy pick and stuff, a guy that's paid off a lot since Collins went down is Jabari Parker. He's been doing a terrific job. But again, you've got some bigs from Denver that can defend well. You've got this game that also is a potential blowout game. You've got the altitude. Just, it really concerns me on the Atlanta side. The one guy that I will say that I have a little interest in, and it's just because he's so damn cheap and he's just playing with so much more confidence, is Kevin Huerter. He had a very strict limits restriction. In fact, he missed a few of the first games of the year. Came back on a 15 to 20, and then it went up to 25. And then he played beyond that in the last game, hit a couple threes, one to send it to overtime. And he's just, his usage is really good. And, some of the usage that Collins gave up, had to go somewhere else than just Trae Young. And because Huerter's so cheap, and because I think he can get 30 minutes in this game, I think you have to consider him. Strictly on value, but he may be a solid play for you on that side of the ball. Now, on the Denver side, I have dogged Jokic most of the year. I've been, on him pretty hard because he looks out of shape and disinterested and, really not getting it done. But, Denver is 7-2. They're playing at home against a depleted Atlanta team. Atlanta's interior defense is bad with Alex Len and company. And, you got to consider Jokic tonight. You really do. His cost is up. It's certainly not as high as Embiid and some of the guys out there. But, he's a triple-double waiting to happen. And he seems to be flipping the switch slightly the last couple of games to get back to where he was. So he's going to be into consideration for me, depending on how some of this other news breaks, but I think you got to consider him. The other guy that I'm going to focus on in this game is Jamal Murray. I think he's turned it on the last couple of games. He's a streak shooter that when he gets hot at the point, he can throw up, 30 real points pretty quick, and he's going to get some of those other ancillary statistics, a few steals and some rebounds and assists. So he's certainly a guy against really, really poor Trae Young defense that you've got to consider, and his price is pretty darn fair. So in this game, I may roll Herter, and definitely looking at Jamal Murray, and depending on some of the news, may roll with Jokic as well. All right, we go on to another 9 p.m. Eastern game, and I'm excited for this game because you got the LA Lakers at 7-2 coming off a loss, going to the Phoenix Suns, who've been somewhat the surprise team of the league, which it didn't surprise me because I love Monty Williams. I love what he's doing in Phoenix. I thought Rubio was the perfect fit for that team to get them all playing. What I didn't expect is that Ayton would be suspended for diuretic or whatever usage he was doing that's against NBA rules, but he's out for 25 games. But the other side of that was Aaron Baines. Good Lord, who would believe Aaron Baines would come out and be smashing 50 burgers all the time? It's just nuts. But, so this will be a real barometer test for Phoenix. Are they real or aren't they? And the Lakers coming in with LeBron and AD geared up to play. This will really tell a lot of sort of, is Phoenix start been a fluke, or, are they the real deal? So Rubio has been on fire lately, and if he's shooting the ball decently, he's going to get you some good DFS points because he's always going to get assists and some other periphery stats. But if he's not shooting well, which he's percentage-wise, his career, 8 seasons, is like 30-some%. So he's not a good shooter, but you got to look at him. His price is decent, but he may be a fringe or GPP play for me. As far as the other guys, I'm not going to go with Booker here. LA's got Bradley and those guys that can just lock you down at the 2, and I just don't feel comfortable that Book, even though he's been unbelievable, man. He's the only guy in the league right now shooting 40% from 3, 50% from the field, and 90% from the line. I mean, that's amazing. That does not happen very often. And to be this is the 10th game, and he's still shooting those numbers. He's been so proficient. He's also not turning the ball over. His assist to turnover ratio is the best as far as improvement from last year. He turned the ball over a ton last year when he was forced to either play point or play alongside of guys like a Kobo and I don't know, that DeAnthony Melton. I think they had all kinds of crazy point guards playing out there that are either in the G League or backing somebody up somewhere else. But with Rubio out there, it seems to have really given Booker a settling influence, and he's playing good ball. I just don't like him in this matchup. Number one thing is the Lakers are number 1 in the league in defensive efficiency. They're even better than Utah. So they're locking some folks down. And you've got, like I said, Baines and company inside, but you got to deal with Davis and McGee and Howard and those guys. And then with Bradley and some fresh bodies switching out like Caruso and guys who can be nasty on defense too, they'll be giving Booker a hard time. So I'm gonna fade Phoenix. So I'll silently be rooting for them to do well because I'd like to see them hang in there and really give them a good game. But they're playing good ball. They're 9th in the league in defensive efficiency, and they've been hustling. That's the one thing is Williams has them playing really, really hard, and that's good to see. And one reason why you got to be a little nervous on some of the Lakers stuff because of their defense. But here's why I like playing either LeBron or AD. I'm not sure which guy I'm going to go with yet, but one of them is going to be in play, and I faded both of them the last 2 games, and it's I've survived it. But Phoenix is ninth in the league in pace. And yes, like I said, they're playing some good hustling D, but they are still a little shorthanded with some of those guys out. And it's a pace-up game for the Lakers. The Lakers are 21st in the league in pace. And I think the Lakers have also taken notice that Phoenix has sort of been the talk of the West a little bit with their quick start. And, you poke the bear a little bit with LeBron and AD, and that's never a good idea. So I'm not going to spend up for both guys because I don't want to just eat all my salary in this game, but I'm going to recommend that you play one of these two guys tonight based on your build. I mean, you got to take a look. Do you need to fill the small forward spot and just plug LeBron in there, or do you want to take a big a 4 or 5 spot with AD? So definitely consider one of those two and fire one of them up, because I think it's going to be a good enough game that they're both going to do well. But again, it's like the Harden Westbrook scenario. Do you want to eat all your salary in one game? And I just don't like letting everything lie on one specific game unless it's the perfect matchup. And yes, it's a little bit of a pace up for the Lakers, but Phoenix plays decent defense. Baines gets after it pretty hard. Definitely look at one of the two big studs for the Lakers, and then let's move on from there. All right, we have two more games left. Another 9 p.m. Eastern game. The Brooklyn Nets are traveling into the Utah Jazz, so this will be a very interesting game. Karis LeVert is out. Utah's coming off a back-to-back. You've got Utah as the second best defensive efficient team, just slightly behind the Lakers, but possibly the best defensive team really when you break it down. And Utah, again, 27th in the league in pace. So just like last night, they make games ugly. They slow them down. They reduce possessions. They defend. They foul a lot. They get fouled a lot. And what that spells for DFS is disaster. I mean, it's hard to really target Utah games in DFS because they affect the flow of the game so much. That being said, okay, Brooklyn does play pretty fast. They are third in the league in pace. So that is going to elevate some of Utah's players a little bit, and it will get them up and down the floor somewhat. And, the other point is Brooklyn's 24th in the league in defense. So, they've been outscoring some people. Kyrie dropping 40 and 50 and other guys stepping up big. But, it creates a really odd dynamic in this game. It's going to help Brooklyn that they had last night off and Utah's playing a back-to-back. So that's one thing that makes the game a little bit more palatable there. Snyder has a tendency on back-to-backs to try to rotate guys a little bit more and keep the minutes within reason. So, Gobert smashed last night. I don't particularly like him tonight. I know that we've targeted centers against Brooklyn a lot, but DeAndre Jordan is back and playing pretty good, which will reduce some of Allen's lack of defense in there, and I think DeAndre will play a little bit better. So I'm not going to dial up Gobert. I think Donovan Mitchell's always a pretty tough play. I mean, he's good, but he's just not a DFS stat stuffer for his salary. So that concerns me a little bit. Conley's a hell of a defender. That may squeeze down Kyrie a little bit, but Karis LeVert's out. So what that does to me, in my mind, is his usage has to be spread out a little bit. The two guys that I do like Kemba, even though he's going against Kyrie, even though he's going against Conley. I still think Kyrie is definitely in play. If we can fit his salary in there, that's the key. because they're going to try to up tempo as much as they possibly can in this game. And he and Dinwiddie's cheap. They'll run those two together a lot throughout the fourth quarter if it's a close game, and they both can do well there. The other guy I like from Brooklyn's side is Taurean Prince. He's been getting 35 to 40 minutes. I think a little bit more opens up. He's in the top 10 in minutes played this year, which is surprising. Nobody really saw that coming, but it does open it up a little bit with LeVert out, and I think Prince is one of those guys that's decent enough value to be able to smash his number, with his usage increase and minutes increase. So I'm considering all three of those guys, a combination of maybe two of them, depending on salary, with Kyrie, Dinwiddie, and Prince. On the Utah side, again, I'm fading Mitchell and Gobert. Conley, could be a decent play. He started out so bad this year, but he's been coming back. I'm not really crazy about his salary. So that's a spot where, I'm going to look twice. The guy I sort of like here is Bogdanovich. I mean, he's been consistently 4 games in a row now producing well. And I think on the wing, Brooklyn has a tendency to give up a decent amount of threes. And so I think Bogdanovich, if he can just pull in some rebounds and get enough ancillary numbers to, go with a point scored, I think can be a really nice play. He's not dirt cheap, but he's a good mid-level guy. And I think, he would fit well here as well. All right, we go to the last game, the late night hammer. It's a 10 p.m. Eastern game. Portland Trailblazers at Sacramento Kings. This is a game I think we can go to for some value. We certainly need a couple of cheap guys to squeeze into our lineup here. The big news, obviously, De'Aaron Fox hurt his ankle really bad in practice yesterday. He's going to probably be out a good month. What it does is open up the first guy right off the bat that is the value, Corey Joseph. I think Corey Joseph has proven in the past when he gets the minutes and he can get out there and really do his thing, he can play well and he can produce. I think you definitely have to utilize him to round out your lineups, just from a value perspective. I think he'll be super highly owned. I get that, but you're going to need him for that value. On the Portland side, Dame has been absolutely out of his mind, just unbelievable, especially in the second half of games. If you look at his second half production, it leads the league. I mean, he's in the top 5 in fourth quarter, but he's first in second half production. I mean, I remember 2 times at least this year that I was like, I'm screwed, because he had like 8 DFS points at halftime, and then he ends up with like 48. He just unbelievable second half player. Sacramento's going to be reeling a little bit, certainly with Fox out, but I think Joseph can pick up enough slack there to keep Sacramento in the game. I think it'll give a little bit more usage to both Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich off the bench. So I may actually have a team with both Bogdanoviches tonight, which would be sort of ironic. But I think both of those guys get a nice bump and could do a nice job. On the Portland side, I don't trust Whiteside in the interior. I know he had a tremendous game the last game, but just you never know with his ups and downs and foul trouble and everything else going on. I would never blame anybody for rostering either one of the Portland backcourt. Lillard is expensive, though, so you sort of have to choose between him and a Kyrie or somebody at the point that you're going to use, but he smashes every game. CJ McCollum's also been really solid. He's had a few average games, but he's he takes a lot of big shots, and they have such a cool rotation for him that Lillard's out a big chunk of time in that second quarter and then in the third quarter as well, midway, where he's just running the show. and his usage when Lillard's off the floor is like insanity. So he's always in play. I would have no problem dialing up either one of those guys depending on the build. If you're really into that late night sweat, late night hammer, you certainly may want to go there as well. But yeah, I would say either Dame or McCollum, depending on what you can afford. Look for a Hield or Bogdanovich, and certainly your monster value play of Corey Joseph has to just be in there, I think, at his price. And that's it. So that gives everybody a decent amount of stars, mid-level, some value guys on what I really think is a great slate. You've got some slower paced teams, sort of a mixture. So it's not going to be one of those psychotic nights where you have to get 355 to cash. I think you're going to be more in a regular type scenario where 305, 308 is going to get you in the money. So it's a great card, 8 games, and it's in the books. So it's been fun. This is great. I hope this helps you. I know it's coming out a little later, but listen to it throughout the day today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that I didn't answer for you, hit me up on Twitter. I'm again at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Follow the news up until lock, and let's win some DFS money. And then Mike Apotri and I will be back later this evening, and that will post late tonight or early tomorrow for the Coaches Challenge Wednesday slate, which is a really good 7-game slate. So, all right. I appreciate everybody. Thanks for listening. Again, rate, review, subscribe for us. Thank you to Fantasy Draft, our presenting sponsor. And we thank you for joining us on Hoopball NBA DFS today. For my fellow DFS pros, Mike Apotri and Andrew Hansen, I am Coach. We will catch you again tomorrow as we look to crush it in NBA DFS. Have a great one.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.